What do you have your eye on? What do you think is really important for us to be aware of as we go into this next year?
You have to look at it in the context of long-term cycles. 10 generations ago, Uranus and Neptune and Pluto weren't even known about. I actually see that as a real positive. This is such a launch point. There'll never be an opportunity like this again in anyone's lifetime.
What's to come, how to really use this as an opportunity.
Lighten up, loosen up, be flexible and adaptable, go with the flow and flow with the go.
Greed and fear only can work here when we're bought into it.
Greed and fear are the main tools that have kept us repressed.
You get to a point where you're seeing through those mechanisms and they no longer control you. Well, so let's talk about 2026, Steve. What do you have your eye on? What do you think is really important for us to be aware of as we go into this next year?
If you're going to talk about 2026, it's too easy. There's going to be lots and lots of trashy little videos on YouTube in the next few months about how 2026 is the year that changes everything, and it's going to be the biggest full moon or the biggest Mercury retrograde of human history. Yada, 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 yada. Um, you have to look at it in the context of long-term cycles. Bearing in mind that 10 generations ago, Uranus and Neptune and Pluto weren't even known about. 4 generations ago, Pluto wasn't known about. It's only in the last 250, 60 years that we've had these outer planetary archetypes to work with, which is such a minute, short period of time in human history. So the acceleration of consciousness in the last couple of centuries has been exponential, and the astrological symbolism that reflects that is growing exponentially as well. And I feel that the large scale planetary aspects since the end of World War II, the mid-50s with the Uranus-Neptune square, the mid-60s with the Uranus-Pluto square, and then rapidly accelerating, particularly through to the Saturn-Uranus-Neptune conjunction in Capricorn about 40 years ago, 28 years ago, 29 years ago, the various grand crosses of recent years, and now. Saturn conjunct Neptune is easy to pinpoint on its own, but the bigger picture with Neptune sextiling Pluto for the final time. We were all born with Neptune sextile Pluto, but in the last 10 years, Pluto's been accelerating, Neptune's been static in its orbit, and now Pluto's slowing down again and Neptune's catching up in the sextile. So we're entering a 2 to 3 year period where Pluto will sextile Neptune, and that will be the last time for at least 500 years that Neptune will sextile Pluto. So our generation from World War II to the current time are the only people in history who've had Neptune sextile Pluto. It's a generational thing. Uranus will be sextiling Neptune as well, and of course Uranus will be trining Pluto for the next 2 years. This is massive. When you consider that since you and I were born, Uranus has never trined Pluto. When I was born, it was about 10 years before the Uranus-Pluto conjunction. So all we've had in the last 70 years is a Uranus-Pluto conjunction, then a sextile, then a square, and now we're heading into a trine. So there's not been a Uranus-Pluto trine in the lifetimes of anyone who's alive today. So it's new. And the fact that it's happening at the start of masculine signs, particularly with Uranus in Gemini, which I think is a great place for Uranus because it's going to rapidly accelerate not only systems, but attitudes, concepts, and beliefs around communication. And it's almost as if psychology is coming of age with a Uranus trine Pluto. And we're all going to become our own psychoanalysts. I'm not trying to put psychologists out of work because some of my best friends are psychologists, but there is an upgrade happening in terms of our own psychological self-reflectiveness. And this is only going to enhance and accelerate over the next couple of years. And I'm pretty sure it's going to manifest in ever faster new systems of communication and technology. At the moment, I'm suggesting the biggest thing I can see is coming up is they're talking just in the last couple of days about an AI crash and an AI bubble, but nothing's ever been uninvented. So I'm suggesting within a year we're going to have holographic video calls and telephone calls. We'll be able to see a person in real time. Yeah, micron thin, nano thin, but still be able to see them in real time and not on a screen, but as a portrayed ray coming from your phone. I also think the whole idea of nanotech mixed with the quantum realm is really beginning to rewrite our attitude towards space, time, speed of light. You know, the dimensional breakthrough that I've personally been advocating for a couple of decades at least, the veil between dimensions is so much thinner now than it was even this time last year. So many more people are waking up to their own, I wouldn't call it psychic potential, but sensitivities. So I put this down to the Uranus, Neptune, Pluto configuration because nothing like this has happened in recorded history in a way that we've ever been conscious of. If it has happened before, it was before those planets were known about. And I don't think it has happened before, at least not for the last 10,000 years. But there are certain trigger points which, when you mix the outer three planets in with the other planets that are much more proactive, that leads to three specific trigger points. And to my mind, the first of these is in January. Not February, but January. And it's over a 6-day period. So I'm probably shooting myself in the foot by giving away my stuff for next year here, but hey, it's the 20th to the 26th of January, where you've got, during that 6-day period, you've got Saturn sextile Uranus, Mars trine Uranus, and Mars sextile Saturn. And 2 days after that, you've got Mars sextile Neptune, just a couple of days before Neptune moves into Aries, and Mars conjuncts Pluto. All of this is happening in a 6-day period. So Mars is aspecting Uranus, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in 6 days, as Saturn is sextile Uranus and Neptune is moving into Aries. That's a great deal of concentrated astrological activity in a very short space of time. In February, of course, we've got Saturn moving into Aries on the 14th of February, followed by the annular Ring of Fire eclipse 3 days later on the 17th of February. Now that's only going to be visible over the most remote island in the world, except for Hawaii, and that's Kerguelen in the South Atlantic, but in the South Indian Ocean between South Africa and Australia. A little part of South Africa will get a 25% eclipse. And 3 days after that, of course, we get the Saturn-Neptune conjunction on the 20th of February. Now that's getting all the attention, but there's a lot of other stuff going on in the background. And as my friend Rick, and your friend Rick is fond of saying, just because the aspect happens on that day, don't expect events. It's like the final crack in the eggshell or the final seed cracking open and the shoot coming out. But that doesn't mean it's going to suddenly give fruit. But it is a significant point. So to me, the first flashpoint is that 6-day period over the 20th to the 26th of January. There is a total lunar eclipse in March, but March is actually quite quiet. I think the in this last year we've been sort of ramping up astrologically the intensity of the planetary positions in the sky. There's been a lot of build up to what's coming in the near future. And I think that the first blast of this in January and then February with the Saturn Neptune conjunction will bring startling changes. And then in March, we'll have a brief respite to sort of gather ourselves together before we get into April. And April, over a 5-day period, I've never seen anything like this, Amanda. To me, this is the most intense period of the year. Over the 13th to the 19th of April, Mars conjunct Neptune, Mars conjunct Saturn, Mars sextile Pluto, Mars into Aries, as well as a 2-day period where we got 7 planets in Aries: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, Chiron, Neptune, all in Aries. And during that 2 to 3-day period where there's 7 planets in Aries, it is the Aries new moon. Sun conjunct Moon conjunct Chiron at the end of Aries, and at the start of Aries on that day, you've got a 5-degree conjunction of Mercury conjunct Mars conjunct Saturn conjunct Neptune. Mercury, Mars, Saturn, Neptune, all within 5 degrees of each other at the time of a new moon conjunct Chiron. That's pokey. 7 planets in Aries. So this is build up starts on the 13th of April and it ends around the 18th, 19th of April. That to me is the second flashpoint.
Okay, wait. So just to be clear, Steve, the first flashpoint is both January and February together?
I think the actual, if there's going to be events or any sort of radical development that symbolizes the changes we're going through, either for positive or for challenging, it's more likely to be, I think, in the last 10 days of January.
Hmm.
And then we get to the Saturn Neptune conjunction, which is more of an astrological sort of egg breaking or seed popping moment. I
Yes.
doubt if that much will happen in February. It's more January I'm concerned around, and then April. April is a standalone. I've never seen. I remember in the 60s, there was a brief time where there were 7 planets in Aquarius. But 7 planets in Aries? Wow. My younger self would be going, quick, hide under the bed. Don't come out until May. But, you've got to dance with this.
Steve, and you're saying that you've never seen 7 planets in Aries at the same time?
Never.
Never. Never.
Never.
Okay.
No, it's not possible. Not happened before. I mean, Neptune hasn't been in Aries for 160 odd years. Saturn hasn't been in Aries for nearly 30 years. To have them together and to have Mars and Mercury on top, the odds on that are got to be at least 10,000 to 1. And to have a new moon, Sun conjunct Chiron, less than 1 degree.
Hmm.
At the same time, you can multiply that by another 5,000. So, we're talking well into the millions,
Hmm.
the potential here, the odds.
Okay. Well, of course, I'm going to ask you to interpret these things for us from your perspective, but let's go through them. Hi, friends. As Steve is taking us through the year astrologically, we wanted to extend a warm invitation to you to join our 2026 forecast panel, which is happening January 20th and 21st, right in the trigger points that Steve is talking about. So we may be having some intensity that we get to navigate together with the wisdom of the astrologers who are going to be featured on that panel. This event is pay as you wish, so you can join for free or you can contribute something that feels right for you. Just go to astrologyhub.com/2026 forecast. We are also going to drop that link in the show notes. I cannot wait to see you there. And now back to the episode.
At an individual level, people need to look at the first 7 degrees and the last 3 degrees of Aries in their personal charts. The new moon, the sun conjunct moon, I think it's at 28 degrees or 27 degrees of Aries, at 27 degrees of Aries, and Chiron will be at 26 or 20. So it's less than 1 degree away from Chiron. I actually see that as a real positive. It can bring an end to a lot of old patterns around self-denial, self-sabotage, inconfidence, inhibition, or it can consolidate those patterns for the rest of one's natural life. But that's Chiron. You either you break free of your limitations or you get stuck with them. But I see it as a real positive new moon. Um, Mercury conjunct Mars, conjunct Saturn, conjunct Neptune. Mercury and Mars will act as triggers for the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in early Aries. So again, it depends on the house in an individual chart, but this is such a launch point. It's a start. There'll never be an opportunity like this again in anyone's lifetime to actually initiate, launch, begin something, depending which house it's in. And obviously, the aspects to that area in your chart denote whether you're going to sort of say, okay, I'm just going to hold on tight, or whether I'm going to take chances. But I see it as incredibly positive time. I'm a natural optimist. Take it out the personal, put it into the world. I remember when Uranus was in Aries, squaring Pluto in Capricorn, and a lot of astrologers at that time were talking about how Pluto in Capricorn represented the interests of the big government, the big pharma, the big banks, the corporation, whereas Uranus in Aries represented the idea of individual human rights, freedom of the individual. Now, there's nothing in Capricorn. It's all going to be in Uranus and in Aquarius and approaching Gemini and Aries. So I do think this is going to lead to a big push towards individual human rights, personal freedoms. I am a bit worried that it might go too far and end up in some type of nihilistic, anarchistic, or overly radical, self-centered or selfish grab for power. But then other people will probably go, no, I'm not going to let that happen. I can't help but feel that this is just the next big, big brick in the wall collapsing on the old systems of corporate, financial, militaristic, economic governance that have served us very, very well for 2,000 years, but are now becoming redundant. For example, if you need evidence of this, ask yourself what a church attendance is like now compared to 30 years ago. 10%. And of course, as with everything, the smaller numbers get when in a particular theme, whether it's church or economics or politics, that leads in the short term to fund the rise of fundamentalism. But that's a relatively short-term phenomenon. There will be some shocking news at that time, but it will also be seen as a catalyst for a fresh start and a new beginning. I suspect that by that time, China will be very strongly flexing its muscles. I know that the Chinese have astrologers in positions of power, and I kind of suspect they might make a military move on Taiwan or something like that around that time. That is the Chinese have the Chinese horoscope set for the moment that Mao Zedong actually proclaimed the People's Republic of China has a great deal of influence around the 4 to 5 degrees of Aquarius, where Pluto will be, and all this lineup in early Aries will be sextiling it. So I do expect China to be doing something quite big at that time. But I have to say that individually, I have to say I see it as really positive, if somewhat nerve-wracking in the short term. It's going to astrologers all around the world are going to be sort of holding their breath at that time. And there might be some interesting sights in the sky as well.
Mm.
But this is only two-thirds of the story. After April, we enter a couple of months, 2 or 3 months of quiet until we get to what I see as the third flashpoint of the year, which is a 9-day period in July from the 15th to the 26th of July. And the aspects during this time are stunning. During that 9-day period, Neptune will sextile Pluto, Uranus will sextile Neptune, Uranus will trine Pluto. All of this is exact. And in that same period, Jupiter will exactly oppose Pluto, exactly sextile Neptune, exactly trine Neptune. The Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto aspects will all be exact over that 9-day period. And there is a 5-day period during that period of the 18th to the 23rd of July where all four of those planets, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, will be at 4 degrees of their respective sign. So anybody with planets at 4 degrees of any sign in the zodiac is going to get triggered at that time.
What kind of an orb would you use for that, Steve?
1 degree, 2 maximum, preferably 1 or under.
So
Um,
anything between 3 and 5.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And because it's 4 signs, each sextiling each other, you Aquarius, Aries, Gemini, Leo, every sign's going to feel the heat in some shape or form. Obviously, the fire and air signs would be more best suited to sort of surf the waves, whereas the water and earth signs might have to sort of make some changes to be able to adapt to things. But again, this is an acute time. And when you talked to me earlier about the heliocentric stuff that I figured earlier, this is because I think it's late May, but heliocentrically, Jupiter will be at about 4 degrees of Leo at that time and making a similar pattern, but that's heliocentrically. The difference from my perspective from heliocentric to geocentric is that geocentrically it's going to have effects on individuals and human run groupings, companies, governments, associations. Heliocentric deals with non-human things such as weather, geophysical movements, and whenever Jupiter and Uranus are aspecting each other heliocentrically, I know that there's a much stronger potential for earthquakes and volcanoes. So I do expect a lot of volcanic activity over both late May and again late July. But I can't see this as being sort of massive trauma. I mean, I've got my fingers crossed saying that, but I don't think so. There's a lot of people out there who are what I call trauma junkies. They thrive on forecasting World War III and mass death. And honestly, they call themselves astrologers, but they should really know better because they're not doing the collective consciousness any favors at all by this. I'm not going to name names, but obviously there's some people out there who they're doom merchants.
Mm.
Now, I'm an optimist, so perhaps I'm the other side of the coin. I could be being overly gung ho. I probably am. But I have planets at 4 degrees of Leo and 4 degrees Aquarius, so I'm quite hopeful about this for me personally, but also for the world.
Okay, so Steve, we're talking about a swarm of activity now in July,
Yes.
and this is a another time period. What is the signature of this one energetically? I mean, I know it's a lot of things happening all at once, but if you had to encapsulate the signature of that period of time, what would you say?
Acceleration, Amanda. with everything at 4 degrees and Jupiter triggering all of the outer planets at the same time, we're going to be thrust into some type of accelerated evolutionary process where either new technology is coming in or some type of massive breakthrough, not breakdown, breakthrough is going to be suddenly put in front of us. And to a lot of people, that'll be incredibly scary because they've got a vested interest in remaining in the status quo. But for a lot of other people, or hopefully the majority, it'll be like, I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting. I knew something was coming. Now, it'd be easy to say, oh, it's going to be some type of, I don't know, mothership or breakthrough in conscious, a dimensional breakthrough or something like that. Or Jesus or Buddha or Allah might return. No. But there's going to be a lot of cult leaders at this time. You can be absolutely sure of this. But something's going to happen around that time, which is going to be seen as a massive breakthrough. And I think that the two before this, late January and mid-April, are like the final hammer blows that are going to break open the shell that's been holding us in for 2000 plus years. And then this stuff in July is going to make us much more aware of the reality of what is available to us collectively and individually. I suggest that by the end of this year, there's going to be a massive wave throughout the whole species of much greater sensuality, sensitivity, receptiveness, which in an ideal world will demonstrate itself in a much greater capacity for compassion and empathy and generosity of spirit and kindness. But there will always be people who will seek to make money out of it or disempower others so that they feel stronger inside themselves. But these are a psychologist's nightmare. They've got massive issues. There's this thing around power now. One of the things about Pluto in Aquarius is that for a long time with Pluto in Capricorn, it's always about being powerful, being strong. And now we're out. Now we're out of Capricorn. I think really that it's this groundswell happening of people going, I don't want to be powerful. I want to be power filled. I don't want to own it. I don't want to control it because that just brings corruption. It spirals downwards. But if you're power filled, you can be a catalyst, both for yourself and for others. And that sort of generates a wave of people catalyzing each other, and then the world becomes a better place. Maybe I'm a blue-eyed idealist, but it's a nice dream. And every positive change starts with a dream.
If you are loving this episode and want to hear more, please remember to subscribe to the channel so you can hear from more astrologers like Steve Judd, Rick Levine, Penny Thornton, and so many more brilliant astrologers that we get to feature here on this channel. Just go ahead and click the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss an episode. Thank you for supporting this channel and the astrologers sharing their wisdom. So Steve, so we have these, again, you're saying January and April kind of set up a new reality taking shape or being more tangible for the July activity.
Yes, I am. I'm going to nail my colours to the wall. Yes, I am saying that. And then, of course, we've still got another 2.5 years after that of Neptune sextile Pluto and Uranus trining Pluto. So it's going to take another couple of years after that for the change I'm suggesting to really establish itself. But I'm convinced that we will look back in 5, 10, 30, 100 years' time and say 2026 is the time we ended our apprenticeship and emerged as fully functional, mature adults into something which is far bigger than we've currently experienced so far. I don't do aliens or ETs, but it's almost like there's this tribe or family in a different dimensions that's been waiting for us for a long time. And here I'm getting very close to crop circles. So,
Which is great. We love when you talk about crop circles.
but look, I'd like to finish what I'm doing about 26 first, but then
Yeah,
we will go back to it because
good.
after July, 80% of the challenges, 90% of the challenges of 2026 are over.
Hmm.
There is a total eclipse of the sun on the 20th of August, and that's going to be over Spain, northern Spain and Mallorca. And here where I am, we'll see a sort of 85, 90% total eclipse. So that's going to be interesting, but it's not aspecting the other planets big time. It's at 20 degrees of Leo. That's it. So it is kind of conjunct Jupiter. But after that, there's a partial eclipse of the moon on the 28th of August, and that is square Uranus. That might be a bit of a sticky one, that 28th of August. September, October, November, quiet.
Hmm.
And then there's just a little bit of a sting in the tail in December. There's a 4 day period, 10, 11, 12, 13 December, where Saturn stands still and goes retrograde, Neptune stands still and goes retrograde, and Jupiter stands still and moves forward. That's going to be kind of putting establishing the solid roots for the first time, I think. I know we're in the middle of a Jupiter trine Saturn now, and that's going to last until August. And the last Jupiter Saturn trine will be around August time, around 14 degrees Leo Aries. It's almost incidental because that happens on average every 8 years. But I've done my best using software to trace back in history and find a time of such intensity in terms of astrological patterning. I found a little bit like this in the 1490s, Columbus, the end of the Islamic Golden Age, and the beginning of the breakthrough of the Church of England from the freedom from Catholicism. But nothing like as strong as it is now. This is a once in a species time, I think. So I'm going to be absolutely fascinated to see where we stand if we do this again in a year from now.
Yes, exactly. Wow. So, Steve, how are you advising clients, the people that you speak with, yourself, on how to be prepared for what's to come, how to make the most of it, how to really use this as an opportunity? How are you advising people?
This is where astrology is such a great leveler, Amanda. It doesn't matter if you're a king or a peasant.
Mm.
You cannot change the orbit of the planets, right? So it's going to happen. So, but what you do have is a choice. This is the fate or free will dichotomy. These astronomical and astrological events are going to happen. How you choose to interpret them and allow them into your life, or don't allow them into your life, and then they'll probably still happen anyway, but you'll end up reacting instead of acting. That's negotiable. So when I'm talking to individual clients, I'm saying, look, this big stuff's coming up, and either you're going to be okay because it's not really affecting you, but look after the friends and people around you, or you're going to get really hit by this, and some of it will be really positive, and some of it won't. And if I were to summarize, because every chart is different, if I were to summarize what I'm saying to people overall, I'm saying, look, lighten up, loosen up. Don't be so rigid with yourself. Be flexible and adaptable. Go with the flow and flow with the go. Go with the flow, you're just surfing the wave. Flowing with the go, you're on the surfboard, but you're leaning back and putting your hand in the water so you can use your hand as a rudder. So you can kind of influence the way you're going. That's a bit more conscious. Bearing in mind the technological spiritual growth of the last 50 or 60 years, it's almost impossible to be able to predict the material outcomes of the next couple of years, the way we're accelerating so fast now. So sometimes I'm left with no choice but to realize that actually what's going to happen is it'll manifest physically, but the real impact will be happening at a non-physical level. One of the big changes that's happened for me since I last spoke to you is I've been working a lot more with medical astrology, and I've been reading a lot of very old medical texts, Culpeper particularly.
Mm.
And one of the ideas I'm formed more and more is that not all, but most illnesses are physical manifestations of a non-physical cause.
Mm.
Most illnesses have emotional, psychological, and or mental roots. And most pills and potions are placebos. They treat the symptoms, not the cause. And I can see a time where we can all become so much more self-empowered and in tune with our natural rhythms. The illness will be far less of a problem, potentially, for those that can move into this. I don't want to become all sort of love and light, but the idea of lightening our frequencies, becoming less attached to the material, to the gross, to the dense. We're still going to, even in my wildest dreams, the type of breakthrough I'm suggesting is not going to put us into another dimension where we lose identity or individuality. We're not going to become telepathic. We're not going to be able to read each other. So this should lead to a sort of much better psychological relationship with ourselves.
Mm.
And that's what I'm trying to instill in my clients and friends. One person at a time.
Yes.
Only
Oh,
another 8 billion to go.
yes, yes.
The Astrology Hub Black Friday sale is on. From now through December 2nd, you can save 40% off courses in the Astrology Hub Academy, including classes from astrology legends like Judith Hill, Rick Levine, Gemini Brett, Cameron Allen, and so many more. When you purchase a course from us, you get lifetime access, allowing you to dive in whenever you're ready. Don't miss this chance to expand your astrological toolkit at an incredible value. Head to www.astrologyhub.com/Black Friday to shop this limited time sale. Now, let's dive back into today's episode.
So, Steve, let's talk about a little bit more about this. I recently had Suzanne Giesman. She's a very world-renowned medium on the show, and she's been on a couple times. But we were talking about, she calls it multi-dimensional communication. Like what she does is simply multi-dimensional communication. And I know we've talked about crop circles quite a bit here before with you, and you taught that amazing class for our community. And can you tell us what you're seeing with the crop circles and what you're seeing in terms of, you talked about multidimensionality before and the veil being thinner. What are you seeing there, and what trend would you expect?
Well, more of the same, but accelerating and refining. The number of crop circles in 2025 was the smallest there's been for like 30, 35 years.
Wow.
The numbers are falling rapidly. The complexity of those still there is still growing. And they are stretching now. There was a crop circle about a week ago in Brazil. So, they're still happening. But I kind of feel that it's almost like the job's been done. The awareness that there is more to this than meets the eye. The battle lines have been drawn. The ideas now, it takes someone who is completely ignorant or shut in to go, oh, they're fakes. They're all made by humans after a night in the pub. That has now been discarded. So now it is down to either they are all fakes and they're all made by people or governments in an effort to dumb us down, or they represent something outside of the range of our consciousness, our current consciousness. And that latter theory is gaining pace rapidly. And it's not that people are suddenly believing in it, but they're becoming more open to the possibility. And that's the idea.
Mm.
Because
Yes.
if they open up to that, then they're going to open up to other possibilities as well, that the world is different to the way we've been led to believe. I'm not trying to make governments or churches the evil people here. They're kind of, they just ride with the gestalt, you know, they're not nasty people. They're just buying into the spin of the last couple of millennia. It's always been done like this, let's carry on. But the business of the future is to take chances, to expand, to grow. Otherwise, we will be extinct in a few generations. And when you talk about your medium friend who considers herself able to communicate at a multidimensional level, yeah, absolutely. I I deliberately have no claim to be psychic or even intuitive. I deliberately asked for everything like that to be turned off many years ago. But more and more people are just comfortable in themselves with their own knowings. They require less and less proof because they trust their own instincts. And this is one of the things that once someone is confronted with being in a crop circle, or through seeing many of the patterns and being exposed to the vast numbers of them over the last 30 years, and the complexity of them, and the perfection of their mathematical formula, they can't help but take a step beyond the rational, logical explanations that they've been fed. And that's when the questions start coming. So that's why I say they've kind of done their job. Another thing that's changed for me since I last spoke to you is I do find myself getting more into the old form of Islamic philosophy, pre-Mohammedan Islam. And on my journeys for the documentary, I went to a large number of ancient Islamic structures, and I realized that every single one of them was built to 99.9% accuracy, but never 100. And when I'm looking at the geometry of the planets in the solar system, some of them are accurate to like 5,000 miles over 500,000,000, but they're not precise. And the crop circles, they're 99.9% accurate, but there'll always be one little corner that's just bent just a little bit. One of the things I've learned in this last year is you cannot ape the divine. Perfection isn't for us in this space-time continuum at this time.
Mm.
Otherwise, we'd have wings.
Mm.
And that to me is kind of reassuring. It's saying you can't hope to be perfect. Just do your best.
Mm. I love that. I love that too, especially in terms of maybe projects you're working on or things you want to build. And if you're waiting for it to be perfect, for the time to be perfect, for the product itself to be absolutely 100% perfect, you're never going to do it. Yeah. Okay, Steve, we're talking now about things that are expanding consciousness and awareness. And I know you told me earlier that I'm not going to like your answer about Three Eye Atlas, but I'm also curious what you think I would have thought. However, what's your thought on Three Eye Atlas? Do you think that it's significant? Do you think that it's heralding anything? Do you think that it's something that is also mirroring this expansion of consciousness? Where are you at with it?
I'm 90% convinced it's a lump of rock.
Okay.
Okay. Now, it's the third intergalactic visitor we've had that we know of, which is why it's Three Eye Atlas as opposed to
Hmm.
one or two.
Hmm.
Um, and we know that it's older than most of the planets in our solar system. Comes from billions of years ago. It's from the very start of the universe. There's been a lot of talk, particularly by one particular astronomer priest, who's constantly talking about whether there's intelligent design in or behind Three Eye Atlas. And all the time I've been thinking, mate, it's a comet. Okay, it's got irregular tails, it's got irregular patterns. I'm 90% sure it's a lump of rock. I look forward to seeing the pictures from the Mars rover, which are supposed to be out in a week or two, when we got close-ups of it. I doubt if we'll see anything spectacular there. But the 10% of me that isn't convinced is hanging on, because I find it both synchronous and strange that at the moment Three Eye Atlas was at its closest to the sun, it was exactly the other side of the sun from the Earth. 6 months from now, we will go through the residue of the tail of Three Eye Atlas. Now, when we go through the tail of other comets, we get meteor showers. The Perseids, for example, the Orionids. It'll be interesting to see, because there's a school of thought that says that comets have provided us with spores that have activated life. I can kind of get into that. So when we pass through the tail of Three Eye Atlas, which no one's talking about at the moment, that's going to be interesting from my perspective. And that's going to be around early mid-May. So, yeah, I look forward to that. But it seems to me there's a lot of people out there who want there to be aliens and ETs, who want there to be intelligent life in the universe that's reaching out to us for salvation. No, we've got to do it ourselves. I don't dispute that there is a vast amount of intelligent life in the universe. I can prove it. I can prove that the placing of the planets in the heavens and their orbital rotational periods is not random. It is 99.99% perfect. And on last Monday at the Shifts Happen gig, I showed a number of slides that prove this to within 1 in 100,000. But that in itself doesn't suggest that there's some type of God or benign spirit that's coming to save us. I like to think that with the acceleration of consciousness that all of these different signifiers are giving us, whether it be the crop circles, the intensity and advancement of astrological complexity, and comets, there's been quite a few comets in the last few weeks. All of these things together suggest to me that this is an increased hammering on the eggshell, which is going to lead to a breakthrough. And when we get to that breakthrough, there's going to be a myriad of species waiting for us, a kind of galactic brotherhood or sisterhood, if you will, that's going to be welcoming us into a fraternity. But that will then mean that we have to make massive fundamental changes in the way we live our lives, which means probably giving up things that are sacrosanct to many people in this world, like borders, money, and various things that have been around for tens of thousands of years as anchors, keeping us fixed. And it's what I call the dominator culture. Greed and fear are the main tools that have kept us repressed for thousands of years. And that is what I think is coming to an end. And that terrifies a lot of people. But it's going to happen, so you either get on board or you don't. And there's probably going to be quite a bit of collateral damage. You know, there's going to need to be sort of a lot of help given to people who can't quite make that jump. We've got to help them. We can't, it's not us or them. It's got to be everyone. We're one species. It's time to grow up and mature as a species and to claim our, our collective birthright, to open up to a much vaster, expanded consciousness, and to take everyone with us, even the people we don't like.
You know, it's interesting. Greed and fear only can work here when we're bought into it. So as long as we don't buy into it as individuals, it has no power. So I can see what you're saying in terms of that they're losing their grip. Even when I think back to my childhood, growing up in the Catholic Church, those are the two tools. Greed, I mean, greed and fear, and but then using guilt, to keep people kind of stuck in these boxes, right? And to know there's so much. I mean, it's kind of a joke to say you're a recovering Catholic, right? I mean, it's because you get to a point where you're seeing through those mechanisms and they no longer control you in the same way that they did either in our generation or previous generations. So I can see that it's happening on a large scale. I would say that people are less controlled by fear and less driven by greed.
And isn't it a privilege to be an astrologer at this time of history? Because astrology is outside of all religion and power structures. Its main theme is encouraging people to know themselves.
Yeah.
And that goes against the doctrine of any coercive organization of any type who want to control people, control what they think and feel.
Mm.
Whereas astrology encourages you to become self-empowered, which is why astrologers have been burnt, slaughtered, tortured, killed, reviled, and when all else fails, ridiculed for hundreds, if not thousands of years. But now astrology is booming. And it's great to be an astrologer in this day and age. And yes, by sticking your head over the parapet, of course you get sniped at. I'm a Cancerian. I've got thick skin.
Oh God, I love you, Steve. This is so good. So, final question for everyone as we're in the end of 2025. What would you advise that we focus on now in order to be prepared for the big evolutionary leaps and changes that are going to be happening next year?
Loosen your grip. Loosen your hold on what you've always believed to be sacrosanct and real. The days of the patriarchy and the matriarchy are coming to an end. It's less about gender and power now. It's about mutual growth and collective responsibility as a species, whilst retaining our individuality, but nurturing each other at the same time.
Mm.
And I can honestly believe there'll be a time, hopefully in my lifetime, and I'm 70, where we will look back on this over the last 2,000 years and go, were we crazy? Why did we buy into this? And there will obviously still be strongholds of the old ways, but they will fade over the times. The young generations are the torchbearers of this. People like you and I are flag bearers, but the youngsters are the ground support, the ground wave.
Mm.
They're the unstoppable ones. They're not buying into the spin. I have a lot of faith and hope for the youth of
Mm.
today, those born in the last 28 to 30 years.
Mm.
So
Steve, tell us what you have coming up. What any exciting things that you're working on?
I'm currently got about 150 students on my Zoom teaching course, which is now 20% of the way through. That's going to run through till early May. I'm also putting a lot of teaching stuff online, and that'll be up by the new year, by January. The documentary, we did so much in such a short space of time. We reached a point where we go, right, we've got 4 episodes, 5 episodes now. I'm exhausted. I haven't got any more scripts. I haven't got any more interviews. Stop. And now we're picking it up again 4 or 5 months on. We're going to pick it up at the start of January and run with it again. Second wave. At the start of February, I'm doing a retreat with Penny Thornton in the west of England. Um, the majority of tickets are sold. There's about 10 to 15 residential tickets left and about 20 non-residential tickets left, 15 non-residential tickets left. But me and Penny doing Decoding the Divine, which we did last year, and we're doing it this year, and that was a big success. And then provisionally, you'll love this. In mid-May, on the Taurus new moon, we're going to be doing Shifts Happen again, the big one. This year, Nick Campion isn't able to join us, so Darby Costello's jumping in. So myself, Rick Levine, Darby Costello, Alex Trenow, Penny Thornton, and hopefully another guest star who I'm not going to announce yet until they've confirmed. Um, and the crazy thing is, when I was doing the research for this session with you, I did all my stuff on the transits of next year, and I thought, oh, how's this affecting me? Oh, not much, just one specific way, but that's fine. I can deal with that. Oh yeah, Saturn's going to square my sun next year. Oh yeah, that's happened before. I'll be all right with that. When does that happen then? Oh, the day that the Big Shifts Happen conference starts.
Wow.
Saturn is square my
Wow.
sun, and I'm organising it. So on the opening night of A Shifts Happen, I'm going to, at the moment that Saturn squares my sun for the first time, I'm going to do a workshop on Saturn.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
You either hide under the bed or you embrace it and work with it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You know, Steve, I was thinking this morning about how everyone alive right now is kind of amazing. If you think about the fact that we chose to incarnate at this time and move through this period of human history, I mean, obviously we came knowing we could do it and that there was a lot we wanted to accomplish in this time period.
Mm.
And we chose a really intense moment to come in. And then, especially when you consider that the people watching this show and paying attention to what you're saying and paying attention to astrology, these are the ones that are also extraordinarily aware of what's happening and what the opportunities are and where the challenges are and where the blind spots are and all these things. So I was just like, wow, it's just truly an incredible time to be alive and to be sharing this level of conversation and discourse with people.
Everyone who's ever lived has always thought they're living in a golden generation.
Mm.
But when you consider how fast things are moving now compared to any other generation, this is the time that our ancestors have sat around their campfires for tens of thousands of years, dreaming of a future with a breakthrough, the like of which we are on the very cusp of now.
Mm.
And when I say now, we're not talking years anymore. We're talking a few months.
Yes.
Scary, but wow, wow.
But wow. Yes. Scary and but wow. Terrifying and exhilarating. And we can hold both at the same time, right? Yes. Steve, thank you so much for being here, for being a part of this community, for continuing to share your wisdom here. We're so grateful for you. Thank you for all the work that you do and just the wisdom that you just pour forth on your YouTube channel and all these events you do and your teaching, all of it.
Amanda, one last thing. I do a lot of interviews these days. Things are happening for me. But you are the only interview I do with practicing astrologers. And everyone else is they sort of asked me for evidence or proof and
Mm.
how does astrology work? And it's like when I'm dealing with Astrology Hub, and the people who are watching this, I'm not preaching to the converted. I'm talking to like-minded souls who are no better or worse than everyone else, but they see things in a slightly different way. Because people don't find astrology. Astrology finds people. And if astrology found you, it's because you got something she wants to work with.
Mm. Yes, I love it. Steve, thank you so much for being here. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for making astrology a part of your life, a big part of your life. If you're still here after this conversation, uh, it is a big anchor in your life. And so thank you so much for being here. Thank you, as always, for making astrology a part of your life. And We'll catch you on the next episode. Take care, everybody.
Bye, world.